Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Folkestone and Hythe District and Parish Council's Joint Committee. Please note this meeting is being streamed live to the internet. Please can all members ensure their microphone is set to mute unless they are speaking to reduce any background noise. So we'll move to the first item, which is the appointment of chair. For the purpose of this meeting, members must appoint a district councillor to chair the meeting. Do I have any nominations, please?
I'd like to nominate Mike Blakemore for chairman, please.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for Mike Blakemore?
I started to propose him, so I second.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Can I have a show of hands from all in favour? Thank you very much. Councillor Blakemore, you've been appointed chair.
Thanks, everyone. Good evening, all. So the next item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies? No? Okay, on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Anybody on a declaration of interest? And on to item 4 then, the minutes of the last meeting. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? Or are we happy with those as a record of the last meeting, which was some while ago, I think?
Propose acceptance.
Yeah. Do we need to vote on that, Alex? Or?
Sorry, I was on mute. If you can just propose and second that.
Yeah, I propose. Somebody second.
Second.
Thank you. Is everyone in favour? Thank you. Perfect.
Okay. So on to our first substantive item of the evening, which is to introduce Alan Mitchell and for him to give us a finance update. So Alan, maybe you want to begin by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Alex, do you want to start the presentation?
Yes, no problem. I'm just going to amend that typo you mentioned.
Thank you.
100%.
Okay, well, I can do the first bit while Alex does that. So thank you for asking me to this meeting today. It's actually a really good opportunity for me to introduce myself and to not meet you in person, but start that relationship with yourselves. So to give you a little bit of context, I'm a qualified accountant. I've been in the accountancy industry some 34 years now. I do agree, I don't look that old, but unfortunately I have been in the industry 34 years now. Of which 20 years of which have been in local authority finance and working for a number of councils. I've been at Medway, I've been at Hastings, and before coming to Folkestone and Hythe, where I started in March, I was at Sevenoaks District Council, so dotted around Kent, but been, you know, like I say, in local authority finance for some 20 odd years now. I think, Alex, you okay to share or?
Yeah, I can share now.
Thank you. So I think what I really wanted to talk to you today really was about the role of the 151 officer. So as you all know, I'll wait for you okay?
Yeah, I'm on it now. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
No, it's black at the moment. It's saying it's sharing, but there you go. So yeah, if you start the slow sharp and then go on to the second slide for me, please. Thanks. You want to make that full screen?
Yeah, I'll just share my other screen.
Great, perfect, thank you. So as you'll be aware, there's three kind of like main statutory roles within the council. So you've got the chief executive, who's and priest, you've got the monitoring officer, which is Ewan, and then you've got myself as the section 151 officer, sometimes known as the chief finance officer. And this particular case, my job title is director of finance. So if you go on to the next slide, Alex. So basically, as the section 151 officer, I'm basically what's known as responsible finance officer, and that's set out in case law. And there's a number of, you can see on the left-hand side there is a number of legal or laws that are in place that set out the role of the 151, what its expectation is, and as I said, kind of like makes me the responsible finance officer. So the role of 151 officer really lies at the heart of any effective and well-governed local authority. The challenge posed by the pace of change, the introduction of new legislation, the changes in terms of how we're funded, how we're operated, it's really kind of like at one of the centre, again, why it's one of the statutory roles. And really, the 151 really has a kind of like a strategic management role in terms of effective delivery of the council's services. And in this kind of like that little diagram there, you look at some of the different aspects that the 151 is kind of like quite centered in terms of how we kind of like deliver those services and how I perform that role. If you go on to the next one, Alex. So there is effectively 5 kind of like areas, should we say, that kind of like contribute towards effective, management and governance of a local authority. And to give you some of the examples, so in terms of corporate management and leadership, well, that would be about effective management of the council resources, or it'd be contributing to the corporate and strategic kind of like management of the authority. Under financial management, you'd be looking at things like about the internal control environments and making sure that we've got effective controls in terms of our finances. It'd also be things like about clear financial management arrangements, regulation, but also like it goes to things about, prudential borrowing arrangements and treasury management and pensions. It's a very wide range, but effectively everything to do with a local authority. In terms of like advising officers on the operational roles, then you're looking at things like supporting policy and service objectives, effective management of council resources again, as well as proper budget management, and I'll come on to that a little bit in the next slide. In terms of things like the effective and responsive financial services, that's things like paying suppliers on time, so accurate and timely payments. It's looking at things like financial information is available. So this is our financial reporting. This covers also our financial statements as well as making sure that everything that we report or reports that have any sort of finance aspects at all have really kind of like accurate, clear and relevant and kind of like robust financial observations and management as part of that. So the last thing I'm going to touch on very quickly, if you go on to the next slide, and this is probably more relevant to yourselves, is about budget setting. So if you go on to the next slide, Alex. Sorry, you might have done it already. So I moved my screen away. Sorry, apologies. So in terms of setting a balanced budget, so we're currently going through the budget timetable now. So we're setting our internal objectives and where we need to hit in terms of various committees and reporting requirements. And we will commence the budget process in early September. Now, the bit that's kind of like relevant to yourselves is tax base and also the precept that yourselves set. So we're looking to have the tax base out to yourselves by early December. Last year it was the 9th of December, and the rough sort of timetable at the moment is that we'll have that out to you by the 8th of December. So it's really important that there is a timeliness in terms of getting that precept information from yourselves. We will use the same demand form that we used last year, so hopefully that's familiar for you and hopefully that worked well for you. If not, please let us know and we can see if we can adjust that to make it easier to use. But it's really, really important that we have that information back in a timely fashion. Last year, I understand that there was a few that was quite late, and operationally that caused us quite a few problems. So if possible, if there is an issue, please let me know and we'll try and facilitate that. But if you could have them back by the 9th of January, that would be incredibly helpful. It's earlier than previous years, and I'm mindful of that, but it would, in terms of the process, and us trying to set a balanced budget in a timely fashion and to hit all the meetings that we need to do to get that budget approved by full council in February, really we need it back by like the early January if possible. If you're unable to do that, then the default position is that we will set precepts on the previous years, just to make you aware that's illegally. If we don't get any information back by the time we need to set the budget, the default position is that we set based on last year's. But in terms of setting the balanced budget, I think we're in a very good financial position. We had a very good outturn position this year, which is very, very encouraging. We have got a few areas that we need to kind of like develop strategy on, homelessness and housing, that being a key one. But as we work for the budget process, we're in a very good financial position. And we're hoping that as we go into this, the medium-term financial plan that we set for the next few years will be, hopefully a reasonable position. We do have other factors that we have to consider. So there is a fair funding review by central government where they're looking at how the council tax, how funding is applied. There's also a business rate reset. So we haven't had a business rate reset for a number of years. And effectively, they look about how local authorities and particularly districts or billing authorities retain the business rates which they collect. So they're doing that as well. And also, as you all know, the Folkestone and Hythe Council, as well as all the other councils in Kent, are part of the local government reorganisation. So that's going forward as well. So there's quite a few challenges this year, quite a few unknowns, but we've taken quite a prudent approach in terms of utilising our surplus position or our outturn position at the end of March 25. And hopefully that sets us in a good position to tackle the challenges coming forward. That's all I'm going to talk to you about today. I'm very happy to answer any questions. If anything, anyone has anything they'd like to ask about. If there's no particular questions today, but you think about something later on, please feel free to email me and I'll respond to those questions. You can probably start sharing now if you want, Alex. Thank you.
Questions from anyone for Alan? No, good. Well, thank you very much for that, Alan. And yeah, do get in touch if you think of anything after the meeting that you'd like more information on or anything clarified. So we'll crack on with our next item, which is we now go over to the second of those statutory roles within the council, the monitoring officer. And you're going to answer questions that have been submitted to you. Is that right?
Well, I think that, it was positioned as a Q&A, and I think, Frank, I think you raised this, helpfully raised it, and I'm delighted to be here. I did put together some slides around the code of conduct to complaints, which I can run through, but I don't want to go into the ground that you don't want to cover. But I wondered if there's any, I think one of the first bits of feedback was how can we help with complaints and how can I help? And then a particular point about the standards committee and does it still meet and when it meets and how it meets. So happy to run through all that if you'd like. It won't take long and I'm not going to bore you with all the constitution and each part of it, but there's probably 2 or 3 kind of important points just to reiterate. But if there's other questions apart from that, I'm very, very happy to do a Q&A or talk about anything you want, really, because I guess my starting point is I'm really delighted this got put on the agenda. Genuinely. I've been doing this role now for about 6 months, and I was very new to it. And from my perspective, I'm really, really pleased about the engagement I've had with town and parish councillors and clerks up to this point. Now, generally, of course, that is because it's a complaint or there's a contentious issue or something to deal with, and that's absolutely fine. But I picked up, I think, Frank, in particular from you, possibly in your views that perhaps we haven't been as proactive and as accessible as we might have been in the past. And I'm really determined to change that. And I think we are changing it, although I appreciate I probably haven't spoken to any of you on this call about anything in particular yet. And also I've got Gemma on with me as well. Gemma, who's our Democratic Services team leader. You'll know Gemma from leading the whole committee services side of this for us, but Gemma's also very heavily involved in complaints processes, for example, and code of conduct issues and that side of it. that was my kind of opening pitch. Delighted to be here. But Frank, have you got something you want to raise? Just
I was going to say, Ewan, is that we're delighted to actually be able to speak to you, because in the past we've had difficulty getting any contact with the monitoring officer at all. And when we've had asked for it to go on the agenda, it's always been no response to it. So yes, we're glad to see you.
And again, I'll just reiterate, very happy to be here. And I think, yes, I'm not going over old ground, but I think I have a different approach. And certainly our council has a different approach about engagement now as well. And you'll know that as a council, we're very, very keen to push on engagement, and particularly at local issues. So I guess if you want me to go through a few slides on code of conduct and all that, I'm very happy to. I'll whiz through it. It won't take long. I'm very happy to answer some questions after that as well. Okay, if I can just remember how to share my screen. And right, has that come up for everybody?
No,
Not yet.
Okay, let's start again. Right, share entire screen. I'm so out of doing this on.
There we are. It's getting there.
Right, so how's that then? And let's see if we can get that out there. Is that working now?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's crack on then. So I think it's probably fair to say that one of the most common sort of times I would engage or have a conversation with the town and parish council is probably about complaints and code of conduct. And I'll happily send these slides out, because one of the things I've done is I put a link in here just as a refresher for everyone about where to find information on the council's website. But I guess just to go through it, once a complaint is made, we want to act quickly, and in particular, you'll get an acknowledgement, or whoever's made the complaint will get an acknowledgement about that, the complainant, as it were. And then if the complaint's been made against a councillor or somebody related to the town parish council, we would write out to them and give a chance to get some comments back initially. And then we go into the process piece. And the process, really, there's three bits to this. And one of the important parts is that we have an independent person. It's a terrible title, that, but it's somebody who we go to as part of the statute and part of law, that we go to for a second opinion on a decision on a complaint, and whether a complaint should be taken forward to an investigation, for example. And when we get into the consideration of that, there are two parts to this: the legal jurisdiction and the local assessment criteria. And I would say, just to start with, when we get into this first bit here, the legal jurisdiction, this is really the bit where, is it actually a complaint that we should take forward and look at? And I'd say the bar is quite high. And I'm saying that because I do appreciate that local issues are very important, and are very important to people who are raising them. And certainly from time to time, particularly when the complaints come in about the code of conduct for a parish, a town and parish councillor, for example, from a member of the public, they sometimes centre on things like the 7 principles of public life, and how that complaint should be taken forward because something's happened that doesn't meet these principles, and often points of local contention with complainants and their interpretation of the 7 principles. That the person making a complaint has an issue and wants something done about it, but there is a test that we have to apply first before we should do anything, and that bar is quite high. And you can see here on the screen, the bottom one, F, is really one of the main ones that comes in. One of the main tests that we we respond to. So if a complaint meets any of these A to F on screen, then we don't take it forward, because there isn't a complaint that merits or should be reviewed by the monitoring officer. And this, of course, is done again with the independent person. What we also do, though, is we go through. Why is this stopped? There we go. We also have a number of preliminary tests around local assessment criteria. So it's another checks and balances to make sure that what we're doing, what we're looking at, is appropriate. And again, the bar is quite high here. And this is not because I don't want to investigate anything. And please, I want to be really clear about that. But I think what I have to be clear about is that not everything, when I step back and look at it from the monitoring officer position, is a complaint that we would take to investigation. And therefore, there's quite a lot of criteria to meet. If we took everything that comes into the inbox to investigation, everything would grind to a halt, because I would spend nothing in my day but doing investigations into complaints that really didn't merit the time that they take and the resource that they take. So you can see there a number of other assessment criteria and tests. And again, just moving that forward there, another set there on them. So when we then move forward into the next stage, then, why is this? Hold on a sec. There we go. So if one or more of the jurisdiction tests or the local assessment criteria applies, then we don't take any further action. We do notify the complainant, and there's no right of appeal, so it's quite an arbitrary process. But I think I think that is correct to have that process in there, because it allows us to draw a line under things, and no actions taken. But what I would say from a town and parish council perspective is that I would always encourage a conversation. And if there's a complaint coming forward in relation to something that's happened in a committee meeting, for example, or from councillor to councillor, or councillor against councillor, I have found really that having a conversation with the clerk is really, really helpful. A kind of informal conversation, not off the record, but informal, because certainly in all of this, if there's a way of doing something, finding a resolution informally without having to go through a process, then that's really beneficial, and something which I would always encourage. So that engagement right at the start, I think, is very, very important. And sorry, I should have jumped on there. Yes, this informal resolution is exactly where we're keen to go. And again, there is whilst there is myself as a monitoring officer, and Gemma provides absolutely excellent support as a specialist in this field, we do link back into the independent person. But there's also a network of monitoring officers across the county who I can draw on from their experience as well, in terms of how they might have come across a similar issue or something which is tricky, and get their advice on. So whilst the monitoring officer, my role, is up front and centre, there's certainly a lot we do in the background to make sure that what we're doing is giving the best advice, and also the best outcome and the most appropriate outcome. So if we move forward, if it's serious enough to merit the investigation, then we do get into territory of the Audit and Governance Committee, and we would take forward an investigation, again in consultation with an independent person, and I would then I would lead this with colleagues, and there are, at the end of that point, there are certainly sanctions that we could apply, that may be applied as part of that. The procedures for investigating complaints and the role of the investigating officer. So we appoint somebody, we go through a review of everything that's there on paper, and ask to interview people where appropriate. And at all times, the reassurance is there that this is always about objectivity, impartiality, and being unbiased. And then at the conclusion of that, then the investigating officer would present me with a draft report on their outcome and what they found out. We have a draft report. Then we engage again then with the member and the complainant and review the report in consultation with the independent person. And I think importantly, if there's no evidence of a failure to comply with the code, then we advise that and no further action. But if there is evidence of failure to comply with the code, then importantly again, that there may be no action to take, except that it's acknowledged that there has been a breach of the code, although it's, it doesn't merit any specific sanction. Although in all instances like that, I would make sure that there was a conversation with the relevant councillor about their behaviour, which has led to this, probably through the clerk and probably that way. Again, informally, but certainly important to make these points in the background. Again, we'd look to seek to, if there's an informal resolution, or if it's more serious than that, then it goes forward to the Audit and Governance Committee of the Council, and that turns into the Standards Committee. And this was one of the questions that was asked. And I must say, I've been at the council for 5 years, and I'm only aware that there's ever been one Standards Committee convened in that time. It's not something that happens very often, and it would have to be a significant matter that got to that point. And I think it's a reflection on everyone, actually, that we don't have this very often, that we don't have issues that are of that nature, that's that serious to merit going into that stage. But if we do have a hearing about a town and parish council matter, then a committee is convened, and it's drawn from the Audit and Governance Committee and 2 voting parish town representatives appointed by parish and town council. So I assume, I think Gemma, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's from this committee, Frank, and the people you have here around the table here. Right, and moving on to that, I mean, I won't go through all this, it's just the proceedings and other proceedings, but quite a helpful kind of aid memoir, I think, for you, just when I do send this out. And then there's a whole list of sanctions where ranging from formal notification of an issue to members being removed from committees or for a time bar period, and quite a number of things in between. And I think the bottom bullet point there is important, that all times, I think, that sanction has to be reasonable and proportionate to the behaviour, and that would be the way it would be reflected. But again, as I say, getting to that point is very unusual, and that's a real positive, I think. And then we would notify, the final part of that is notification of a decision. So I'm going to stop sharing there. And I guess I would just close by a couple of maybe observations, if you don't mind, just my thoughts so far. That again, I reiterate, I've been really, really pleased with the engagement we've had so far. And I'm very happy to engage further. That's not a problem. I would always be encouraging, conversations with, if there's an issue you want to raise back into me through the clerk, I'm happy to have a conversation. And I can give 5 or 6 examples where we've done that recently, whether that's been about code of conduct or other issues. Perhaps some planning matters have been raised that have caused concern locally and feel they're not getting enough traction, perhaps with our teams in the planning department. So, happy to raise any issues from that perspective as well. And one thing I wanted to ask you as a group, actually, and just quite often it is difficult because the bar is high in terms of complaints and how I can intervene and where I should go with this. Often, what I found is that there's sometimes a misunderstanding of the process or the criteria, or in what constitutes a complaint and a proper complaint that should be pushed forward or progressed. As I said, I can't get involved in everything, but a couple of times I have had conversations with representatives from Calc, who, and I've been trying to build a bit of a relationship there with the reps from Calc. Very good, I think, an excellent group. And one of the points that was made to me was that there's an offer for undertaking governance training across all town and parish councils. Now, it does cost from Calc, but I wonder if that's something that might be worth just reiterating in this meeting around, because I know that there's a churn of councillors from time to time. There's been elections recently, new councillors coming in, and whether that's something that just to put on the radar to everyone, that there's an opportunity there for Calc to support with the governance training, which might help certainly in terms of the just positioning the role of members, the governance around it, conduct, behaviour, and indeed the complaints process. So I will stop there. I hope you found that useful, but I'm very happy to take any questions on that or any other issues. Anne.
I'm just going to try and come off mute.
You're off, that's it. Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you went back on, that's it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Apologies, yeah. So there's 3 questions, really, I think. So first of all, how do we know that it's a good indicator that you're not getting to the hearing stage? Could be a good indicator, it might be a bad indicator that people aren't reporting things because they're scared or not sure how to. So I just wondered how you know it's a good thing we're not having more hearings. And I'm sure you've got an answer to that. And then also around equalities, and we're living in a society now quite sadly where there's more misogyny, racism, people with disabilities are kind of marginalised more and more. So when there's a kind of behaviour code of conduct breach, do you ever have an annual report saying there's a trajectory of kind of a concern here that there's more of this type of issue that's being raised? And if you do have those numbers and those concerns around a particular trajectory to do with equalities, would you feed into the equalities team and do an impact assessment around governance training, very specific? And if you don't, do you think an impact assessment annually and then reporting that to equalities might be something to form a whole circle? So it's possibly 3 questions, I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll take the first one. How do I know? Well, I think it's a good point, and perhaps I've overstressed it, but I guess that from my perspective, the complaints coming in are not being taken through to the investigation stage because they don't merit it. So I can only deal with what's put in front of me, but I would also say that even when I've had a conversation with a clerk or a councillor about an issue that they're concerned about, or they wanted advice about how to raise it, it generally hasn't been at a level that I would that would have got to that stage. So I guess I'm going on what's in front of me. I guess what I would say is that I wouldn't hesitate to push it to that direction if required. It's not an issue at all. Absolutely not. I guess that my opening comment was more about there's a lot of good governance around the district with town and parish councils at the moment. If there wasn't, that'd be a lot busier in my inbox. I can say that. In terms of what we do report annually to the Audit and Governance Committee in terms of the number of complaints that we have, and that would include town and parish councillors and the council itself. Now, we don't go into a huge amount of detail on what they are, and we would generally record the complaints that we take forward from as complaints formally and investigation. We don't really report ones that wouldn't go further. But you're raising a very interesting point about equalities, and certainly we wouldn't do any impact assessment, but did you mean equalities and governance training from the parish council perspective? Is that something that you're thinking is a gap and something that should be raised?
Yes, I joined the Women's Network for Kent, and clearly there seems to be an issue around the code of conduct being adopted and adhered to, and some people possibly not coming before you because they're a bit intimidated, and they might be new and they might be women, or they might be disabled, or they might not be, or yeah, could be either of those. So I was just wondering if you were able to look at the nature of what comes to your attention, bearing in mind some things might not come to your attention for a variety of reasons, just bearing that in mind. If you could then say, well, there seems to be more complaints in this arena, or around good governance, we seem to be hearing more and more concerns in this area, or it could be that over the last year we've had challenges in this particular area, which seems to be a new phenomena. And are you able to translate that into perhaps more equalities training might be needed for parish and district councillors, or are you able to reassure the equalities unit that, having looked at the complaints that have come across your desk to your attention, all seems to be well, other than perhaps governance? That's it, really.
No, great point. And I think a couple of points I'd make back to that. If I saw a trend coming forward, I would absolutely be within my rights to flag it and record that properly. Haven't seen that yet, but but also if I saw a trend coming forward from a particular parish council, I would have no hesitation in contacting the clerk to have a conversation and a way of engaging that. So no, I absolutely agree with you. I would do that. It's not something that the level of complaints that go forward is quite low, and getting a pattern at the moment, I don't see it. But that leads into your other point. What I would say is what I said at the start of this. If there is something that a councillor or a new councillor is concerned about raising, doesn't know how to do it, or doesn't want to do it, or is scared to do it, if they're talking to you as an experienced councillor or the clerk, I would always be available to have a conversation, as would Gemma. So if it was something that say a female didn't want to speak to me but would be more keen to speak to the female, I would facilitate that. I would always be able to have a private conversation. That conversation may lead to them making a complaint, or it may lead to them not doing that, but being confident that they've raised something that's on our radar. So, it's about communication fundamentally.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ewan? Frank Hobbs. You're muted, Frank.
Always forget that. What I was going to say is, what sort of sanctions can you give to parish councillors, parish town councillors? Are there any such? If in the fullness of time it gets right to the end of its line, if you might say.
So there are quite a few sanctions actually, and I can put them into the presentation, but I'll just read a few out if you want. So we could be recommending to the district and the parish council that the member be issued a formal censure. That's a reprimand and something that's recorded properly in the minutes of the relevant meeting. We could go down the line of recommending that the member be removed from the committee or have the responsibilities. Recommending that the member be removed from all appointments that they have on behalf of the town parish council. But in all of these, I think the critical part is that my role in the monitoring officer is to recommend back to the town and parish council. It's not necessarily a power that I think I have to do it. It would go back into the town and parish council on the back of the either my advice or the outcome of the hearing of the standards committee.
Thank you.
Icon. Did you have something else, Frank? Was that it?
That was it, yes. Sorry.
Any other questions from anyone for Ewan? Yeah, Emily.
Hi, Ewan. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of the problems is your predecessor wasn't very approachable and often didn't bother to respond to any complaints that came into her. And it might also be handy if you let all of the local parish councils know that you've actually taken over, because I think some of the complaints might not be coming in because they just don't feel that anything's going to be done.
Okay.
I only heard your name very recently, so I just feel that that might help local councillors. And the other thing is, I feel that a lot of councillors have no respect for their clerks, and this is a real issue. I've heard several times they're just glorified secretaries, and they are actually the legal representative keeping our councils legal, and that is also a real problem. Even when councillors have had training, that is still something that comes back regularly.
Yeah, I mean, on the first point, it's actually a really good point and something that I probably should have done. So I'm really glad you've raised that, and I'm very happy to reach out to everyone and just introduce myself. Well, I've met a lot of people, but and I knew them from my previous role in the council as well. Some people, or my director role in the council. But I'm very happy to do that. Not a problem. Yeah, and I think, if I'm being honest, I've had a couple of conversations around challenges between the relationship between clerk and councillors. So, some new councillors, and also I think some councillors who have are probably more experienced and you'd think might know better. In all of this, and there's actually a couple of clerks I have spoken to about a couple of points of this. Not just with councillors, actually, with members of the public as well. So I sympathise completely. I'd hope that having a conversation and just talking to somebody about it and being able to maybe get some informal advice from me about how to deal with something, which I've done a couple of times recently, is helpful. I go back again to this point about calc and the training. I take your point about you can do as much training as you want, but if people aren't going to buy into it and do it properly. But I guess that's where the clerk and other members of the council have the opportunity to address that through the town council or parish council, and also if it gets to the point of taking it through a complaints process. And again, going back to the previous point, you probably feel that some aren't doing that just because of either the hassle or not knowing what the process is, or just being concerned about the process. So I would always go back to get in touch initially if we can and have a conversation.
Thanks, Ewan. I'm not seeing any other hands, so if everyone's happy, we'll move on to our final item. So we've brought you two of the statutory roles at the District Council. I can't offer you the Chief Exec, but I can offer you the leader of the council. Jim, you're going to give us an update on local government reform.
So this has become my sort of mastermind specialist subject. It's even topping Otterpool. I'll chunter through very, very quickly. On the 6th of December, the government published a white paper, and it was devolution and local government reorganisation. Now, the first thing to understand is that devolution does not currently apply to Kent. So we have no plan for devolution in Kent, except the government's long-term commitment that Kent will eventually have a mayor. When that happens, I'll speculate on a bit further. So what we are talking about, when we didn't get on to the government's fast track programme, we were wondering whether we were going to be involved at all. And we got a very, very firm message from the government that said, you're not involved in devolution, but you're very, very much involved in local government reorganisation. So in Kent, forget devolution for the time being. It's all about local government reorganisation. Devolution is the creation of the mayoralty, and local government reorganisation is what happens below that. So So we're at the moment we're proceeding on the basis that we don't have, and I use the analogy that the local government reorganisation is a bag with all of us in it, and the mayoralty is the string that closes the bag at the top. So at the moment we're working on a bag that doesn't have any string. So let's put all of that to one side. So all we're talking about is local government reorganisation. Now, I'll leave you to Google the reasons why the government think it's important, but essentially it's all about saving money, and there's a lot of other stuff, a lot of other words around it. Personally, this is my own personal view. This isn't a view of the council, but this is my own personal view, is that I think it's a dilution of local democracy. We will be operating local government with fewer councillors, which means, in my book, a thinner representation for people. So that's why I say I think it's a dilution of local democracy. But nevertheless, there it is. The government was returned with a huge majority, and they very much have a mandate. So that's where we are. Now, there are 12 district councils in Kent and 2 unitaries, although technically, I'm told, Ewan will no doubt correct me, KCC isn't actually a unitary, but just for the sake of this discussion, they're a unitary and Medway are a unitary. So we've got 14 sovereign bodies in Kent, and we will all disappear. So this will happen. We are inundated with communications from central government. I've had so many letters from Jim McMahon. He's almost on my Christmas card list. And in fact, Jim, I don't know if you've seen it yet, Ewan, but Jim wrote to me today confirming the timetable, and I'll just give you some kind of headlines. So back in March, the 14 sovereign bodies, the 2 unitaries, 12 district councils, we submitted a document to the government. Now, there's certain things about this document. It was one of the few places in the country that managed to get an agreed document. There are, and again, if you Google it, there are other places in the country where, the county has stopped communicating with the districts entirely, and they're only getting information through freedom of information requests and stuff like this. In Kent, we managed to keep it all together. And after a lot of discussion, we put in a submission that we thought jointly that we could support a unitary system that consisted of 3 or 4 unitaries. Which is great. After 3 or 4, 3 unitaries are what we would form around the old clusters, as we call them, which is North Kent, West Kent and East Kent. We are very firmly in East Kent, along with Thanet, Dover, Canterbury, Ashford and ourselves. We are traditionally the East Kent group, with North Kent would then be Dartford, Gravesham, Medway, all of Medway, and Swale, and then West Kent would be Sevenoaks, Tunbridge Wells, Tonbridge and Malin, and Maidstone. Now, or as some people say, it would be North Kent, Rich Kent, and Poor Kent, and we're very much the Poor Kent. We've got all of the areas of deprivation in East Kent, so it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. So that's the 3 unitary model. Once you go to a 4 unitary, then you have a myriad of different options that you can mix and match very much as you like. Early in the process, West Kent, so that, just to remind you, is Tonbridge and Malin, Tunbridge Wells, Sevenoaks, and crucially Maidstone, said we're a group. We're very happy with the group. We won't accept any other discussion except that's our group. This threw the rest of us into a bit of a pickle, because once you take because of Maidstone's central position, once you take Maidstone out of the reckoning, there's you become limited. So there were lots of people who said, well, actually Maidstone, Ashford and Swale make a very good mid-Kent unitary. Geographically that works. But then again, there are, other people have said, bizarrely, and I absolutely will die in a ditch fighting this one, Swale, Ashford, Folkestone and Hythe might make it, which is bonkers. And then similarly, someone else, there have been voices around Maidstone, Ashford, Folkestone and Hythe. So we've got several. So this is where I am at the moment, because all of this has to be agreed. I'm comfortable with the old East Kent cluster. So that's a 3 unitary model, 5 districts coming together, Thanet, Canterbury, Dover, ourselves and Ashford. If we go to a 4, the only thing that I could really think is remotely possible would be Ashford, Folkestone and Hythe and Dover together as a unitary. And that, I think that will, if we choose anything else, I think the government will impose that upon us, because Ashford, ourselves and Dover hold a critical piece of national infrastructure called the Channel Ports, the Channel Tunnel, Sevington, Ashford International, and critically the M20. Now, this is a hugely important piece of national infrastructure, and I think the government will take the opportunity of getting all of those pieces together, because it will make things, from a point of view, border control, the highways agencies, it will just make all of that Operation Brock stuff, just everything becomes easier if you're just dealing with 1 unitary rather than 2 or 3 unitaries. So I think that would be important. But this is just my thoughts. These are just my thoughts. I also, if I have to, I could live with a slimmed down East Kent group, which is ourselves, Dover, Canterbury and Thanet, and Ashford would be in a mid-Kent unitary. I could kind of live with that. But so that's where I am. There'll be lots of chat, there'll be lots of discussion. So where we are at the moment is our submission went in, the government accepted it, they commented on it, and they asked us to do further work. So we have appointed KPMG as a strategic partner in this process, and KPMG's job is to effectively crunch all of the numbers. So there are an absolute plethora of numbers to crunch. So, for example, our biggest economic partners, this is great, our biggest economic partner is Ashford. So that means more people either go or come from Ashford to work, our second biggest economic partner is Dover. Our third biggest economic partner is London. Our fourth biggest economic partner is Canterbury. If you look at it in terms of travel for education, then Canterbury, Ashford, and then Dover. It's fascinating. And when you get into health geography, it's really flipping mind expanding. It's certainly opened my opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. Health geography is very, very, very important in this, because the new unitaries will be taking on adult social care and children's social care, and that relies a lot on liaison with National Health Service, et cetera, in terms of discharge, and so there's a ton of stuff that goes with the health geographies. This is one of the reasons I think Ashford has to be with us, because everyone in this district looks at the William Harvey as their principal hospital. So I'm just saying. So there's loads of discussion going on around that. KPMG will be offering us, the hard facts, as it were, rather than individual thoughts. And there certainly is a lot of work to do. We've got our first session with KPMG, I think, next week. It's gone in the diary, and there'll be a lot of work going into that across Kent in the coming weeks and months. So our deadline is that we have to submit our final report, our final proposal to government on the 28th of November this year. Now, you will all be invited. The parishes are very, very, very important in this, and you will all be invited. We will hold another session at the Civic Centre to get as many parish councillors as possible in there to explain the impact on, to explain what we're doing, get their views, and just to outline what's happening with regard to parish councils. Now, since we last spoke, the world has changed as far as parish councils are concerned and local government reorganisation, in so much as the white paper contained this very bizarre sentence. It said the government wanted to rewire its relationship with town and parish councils. We all assumed that meant that town and parish councils were going to be expected to do more as the kind of the first building block of local democracy. People vote for town and parish councils, they're sovereign bodies, they hold assets, etc., etc. In all of our minds, that was the obvious choice. And, I had many meetings with Calc. Well, I had 3 meetings with Calc, and, I came and Frank chaired a session. I came and spoke about this, and we were expecting the town and parish councils to do a lot more. Now, I think the reason why we sort of went straight for that was, in this district, we are heavily parished, and we've got some excellent town and parish councils. And certainly, people like Hawkinge, Folkestone, Hythe, New Romney could more or less step up without any issue at all. So we were pretty confident. Anyway, about it was last week, say 10 days ago. I was on a webinar with Jim McMahon, the minister, along with 330 other people, and he said, no, this is wrong. What we're going to do is we're going to create area committees. This is going to be the ward councillors, which in terms of, these are ward councillors elected to the new unitaries. Now, we don't even know how many ward councillors there's going to be, but so the ward councillors would be expected to create area committees, or they've also got another phrase, neighbourhood arrangements. Now, in answer to a question that someone immediately asked, he said, well, town and parish councils can be co-opted onto these area committees or neighbourhood arrangements, but the area committee or neighbourhood arrangement will be the basic building block. Now, that's as far as we know at the moment. Jim McMahon sent a very long list of stuff to us today, 4 separate letters, in fact, or 4 separate updates under the cover of one letter, which we're all busy wading through. I don't know if Ewan spotted any reference to neighbourhood committees in there, but I didn't. It was a lot about restricting what we can do in the next 18 months in terms of selling assets. So it's a work in progress. I've had to change my tune very much in terms of what I thought town and parish councils would do, because I've been told that area committees are going to be the way that the government wants to go. Now, that said, you know, everyone who's involved in it agrees that the government are kind of making this up as they go along. They everything that gets thrown up, you know, we only got scant details at the beginning, and they've been kind of filling in all the blanks as we've gone. So just to go back on the timeline, so we make our submission on the 28th of November. And then over Christmas, the government consider it. Then early in the new year, we're expecting sort of February or March, the government will go out to consultation. Now, it's likely that they will go out to consultation on the minister is minded to basis. So effectively, it will set out everything about the unitaries and put that out for consultation. That won't be his final decision, because he has to be able to take the feedback from the consultation. So we're expecting that we will have the final decision on the unitaries probably just before the summer recess next year. So it'll be this time next year before I can positively tell you. I'll have a very good indication. I'll have a very good idea of how many is in the unitary that we're in and who we're in it with, etc. But the confirmation of that will be probably this time next year, maybe June next year. So then we move on, and we will in May 27, we at Folkestone and Hythe and other district councils in Kent are scheduled to have our elections. Now, the government has given May 27 as the date of elections for the unitary authorities. So all of the unitary authorities will be elected on in May 2027, and it is likely that these elections will replace our elections, and the district councils most likely will be asked to extend by 1 year. Now, during that year, there will be a shadow authority. The unitary will be in its shadow form, but all of the decision-making powers will still lie with the district councils. But a lot of Jim McMahon's update today was about the relationships and the limits within that shadow year. So we will be limited on land we can sell, contracts we can enter, lots of stuff that we can and cannot do during that year, because effectively the unitaries will be coming in. Then in April the 1st, 2028. Will be the unitary vesting day. It's called vesting day, and that is when they come to life, and we will disappear completely without trace. We're gone, and the future will be in. So there'll be no KCC, there'll be no Folkestone and Hythe District Council, no Ashford, no, we'll have new names, and we will be new bodies, and we will face a bright future, no doubt, together. So sorry about all of the speed at which I hurtled through all of that. There's a ton of stuff in it. I'm happy to take questions.
Everyone's been, Alex sent round the report from KCC, so everyone's got some bedtime reading if this wasn't.
Oh, well, just to talk about that report is excellent. That is, I mean, it is really, really long. Do you know what I mean? You've got to set aside the whole weekend but it is flipping good. So that report was prepared by officers, and it's to advise their political masters, and it's a cracking piece of work. I have to say, it is hugely well informed and really, really good. I mean, I haven't read it all, but what I have read is terrific. And you'll see in there, there's a chart where they've scored the options. So we've got 6 options available in terms of our unitary geography, and they have. I'm delighted to point out that they agree with me that the 3 unitary model is overwhelmingly the best one to go for. But so I can highly recommend that report if you wanna do the background.
So any questions for Jim? Yeah,
I've talked everyone to death.
Frank Boland.
Okay, thank you very much, and thanks, Jim, for your explanation. Unfortunately, I've got a very unstable internet connection, so I pretty much missed most of what you were saying about the area committees, which is news to me and rather worrying. Now, I won't ask you to go through it again, but you did mention that you've received today this letter from Jim McMahon, which apparently deals with some of this stuff. And my question is, can you circulate that to us, please?
Yeah, I'll have to take advice from officers on that, Frank, because there's a lot in it. But we will certainly circulate something on it. You know, you and others will have to read that in some detail before I'm able to confirm that we can. There's a lot of numbers in there, so it doesn't say a great deal about area committees, Frank. It talks more about timeline, and it's a guidance note that is aimed at restricting what we do as a district council in the run up to reorganisation. You know, they're not us, but you may talk to other district leaders who are intent on asset stripping their district in. You know, we've already had meetings with Folkestone Town Council, with New Romney Town Council. We've got appointments with Hythe and with Hawkinge about assets that they would like transferred to them. Now, we're very open-minded on that. You know, they're largely open spaces and things like this. So you know, this is the way that we were working when we thought that town and parish councils were going to step up. But anything that we do get that we can tell you, Frank, we will share it with you.
Thanks, Jim. Anne, a question?
Yes, just to say, in Lim, we actually received a questionnaire, and I'm not actually sure who it's from. Mike was chairing the meeting. I'm just the vice chair. So, and we already were quite clear that in any consultation, the parish council don't wish to become a sort of an arm of the government, or a sort of in any way accountable to anyone other than our community. And so we've already answered a questionnaire basically, and we've already started thinking about it. But I wonder if we're actually thinking about it a little bit harder than Jim McMahon, because this is all news to us, although the questionnaire was quite a wake-up call. But we could become sort of an arm of the government, really, these area committees and neighbourhood committees, and that leaves a vacuum about who actually delivers to the 1,700 people we all know as a parish council. It's but you know all this. It's just to say we filled in a questionnaire.
Sure. Well, just to explain, and what Jim McMahon's clarification means is effectively there's no change for town and parish councils. We thought that as the kind of, you know, basic building block of democracy in this country, that town and parish councils would be included and, you know, would be expected to do more. We were wrong. Town and parish councils will be exactly as they currently are. There will, you know, you'll have elections, you'll have the powers that you have, etc., etc. We were just hoping for more. That, you know, that was it. The area committees will be run by the unitaries, and the town and parish councils won't be co-opted. It will be the individual councillors. You know, there will be representatives of the various town and parish councils will be invited to serve on these area committees. So it's all really woolly, you know. As I say, this all came out in a webinar, and everyone is running around kind of, what did he mean by that? What did he mean by this? You know. So we're hoping for further guidance on it. But effectively, it doesn't change anything for town and parish councils. We were just hoping that they were going to utilise the, you know, the scope that there is for town and parish councils, but I think we're going to be disappointed.
And obviously, it won't surprise you for me to ask that these area and neighbourhood committees and whoever's asked to go on them, will they be coterminous with the integrated care boards, neighbourhood committees, neighbourhood teams, so that primary care is kind of coterminous with somebody, whether it's a parish council or town council? I don't suppose we even know that yet. But
well, no. Although, and you have very, very, very succinctly put your finger on one of the advantages of unitarisation to my mind. I think one of the key things that we have to do in this process is, through these health geographies, to actually promote that, exactly that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? To get closer working relationships between housing and health. You know, that's the key one for me. So while, you know, and I'll say all the stuff again about, you know, dilution of local democracy, blah, 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 all of that sort of thing. You know, it does have, if we can get it right, there are some inherent advantages, and that is one of them.
Right, Frank Hobbs got his hand up.
Thank you. First of all, answering Anne, the questionnaire came from Cal. They've sent one out to everybody. Something just over half, up the end of last week, just over half the councils in Kent have responded. But they've extended the deadline by a fortnight.
Thanks, Frank.
The actual count position, as of about 10 days ago, is that the area committees as we know them now were likely to continue, but it doesn't sound as though now that may be the case. There may be something else going on that we will find out about in a few days' time. The other thing that I've mentioned before to Jim is that we have 6 parishes in Shetway, Folkestone, where there is no parish council. 2 of them, there's 2 pairs of 2 that are next to each other. You've got Paddlesworth and Acres, and you've got Stouting and Stouting and Monks Horton, and you've got 2 on the Marsh, Snargate and Old Romney, and they don't join each other. They've got another one in between, or 2 in between. What will happen to them, we're not quite sure. We as a district seem to have got virtually all the parish meetings in Kent are in this one district.
Well, just to say, Frank, you know you're absolutely right. Obviously, and this is because an early advice note that we got from Jim McMahon talked about parish councils coming together. Or having partnering arrangements, and that's why we were very confident, as Calc was, that that town and parish councils were going to be used as the sort of the basic building block. The government have clearly moved away from that at the moment. I'd suggest probably because of exactly the problem that you've highlighted. I mean, we at the moment across Kent, we're heavily parish, but there are other places that aren't. Tonbridge, for example, are rushing everything to try and get a town council in place. Margate are trying to get a town council in place. There are, there's loads of bare patches in Kent, and we're all charging down the road in one direction, and now it's going to be whoa, hold on. We're all off in another direction, so I can't give you an optimistic view at the moment on that. But just going back to just so no one gets there will be no change to town and parish councils. You will continue to carry out the functions that you currently do. All Jim McMahon is saying is that he would like these new area committees to co-opt local expertise from town and parish councils. So that's as far as we've got so far.
Thanks, Jim. I'm not seeing any other hands, so that's sorry, Frank Boland.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, just on the question of these area committees, coming back to this, and the questionnaire. The questionnaire from Calc, where it talks about would you wish to move to area committees reporting to the 4 or whatever unitary authorities, or keep the existing 13 area committees. I assumed that, perhaps I'm wrong, as meaning do parish councils and town councils want to keep the same arrangements for coordination among themselves? So, for example, we have the Shepway Area Committee as part of the infrastructure of Calc, rather than, as I understood Jim saying, area committees consisting of ward councillors of the new unitary authorities, whichever function they have, who would be some sort of, I don't know, Soviet within the unitary authorities, just to give it a name. So, I mean, I think they're different, but it's really very important, I think, that we do get some clarity on exactly what it is that's being considered for these things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Frank. And I think that what Jim McMahon in the webinar talked about area committees, but Susan Priest keeps correcting me, telling me that the name they're using is neighbourhood arrangements now. And I think the reason for that, Frank, is because Jim McMahon didn't realise that there were area committees already in existence. So talking about, but that's in effect what they will be. I think it will be for Calc and existing town and parish councils to agree their own arrangements, as it were. But a very, very interesting thing, this throws up a very interesting thing in that, say, for example, we're working on the basis that in Folkestone and Hythe district area, there are 6 KCC divisions, and it will be these divisions that will become the new wards. And whether they stand 2 councillors per ward or 3 councillors per ward, we don't know. That will depend on the size of the unitary, etc., etc. But in effect, if, say, for example, bearing in mind we're now in a unitary with our neighbours Dover, for example, well, the border between us and Dover will no longer exist. So these neighbourhood arrangements could extend across what are now the defined boundaries. As the boundaries disappear, a place like Capel, for example, may feel more appropriately involved in Folkestone discussions than it is in Dover discussions. I'm not remotely suggesting that's on the table. I'm just saying that as a geographical example. So it's an interesting one with, for example, our North Downs. North Downs has been moved. The parliamentary boundary has been changed. If, for example, we are in a unitary with Ashford, it may be that people feel it's more appropriate that people in North Downs look towards Ashford rather than looking towards Folkestone. So it throws up a shed load of stuff. Do you know what I mean? That we've got to resolve over the next wee while. But it's early days in the government's process yet.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. If there is nothing else, no other business, I'll draw things to a close. Thanks, everyone, very much indeed.
Thank you, Mike.
Go ahead and Frank Hobbs, did you have something else?
Just to say thank you to Alan and Ewan and Jim.
Yes, thanks. Yes, I should have said that. Thanks, Ewan and Alan, for coming along. You can go away and read those 200 odd pages of.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen it's there. I haven't looked at it.
Cure for insomnia.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Okay, yeah. See you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.